Hi, it's Ronald the Rules Lawyer, and the Pathfinder Law School series now ventures into teaching different parts of the system while also showcasing why I like Pathfinder over the market leader. In this course, I'll go over the 3-action economy and why it's awesome, and go over everything that you can do in it. Well, at least most everything that characters automatically can do, and feats can give you more. But anyway, I'll cover tips that will help you in your first games, including dealing with the 3rd action problem, and in a companion video, because I can't stop talking, I'll go over a raging controversy that burned through my D&D YouTubers group that I've been teaching Pathfinder. So to introduce me, I am a game master of Pathfinder 2e who also ran D&D 5th edition and 1st edition of Pathfinder many years, and I'm also a lawyer. And I also taught tabletop RPGs to an after-school middle school class for 8 years. So teaching and rules and gaming are all in my blood. So what is the 3rd action economy? It's usually the first thing people cite as to what they like about Pathfinder 2e. It's intuitive and it makes your turns feel less samey. Whereas D&D 5th edition has different action types like bonus actions and regular actions and movement, which is free unless you use your main action to move a second time. Pathfinder 2e gives you 3 equal actions and 1 reaction, and nearly everything you can do uses 1 or more of these actions. Some use 2 or 3 actions. These are called activities. You cannot break them up between turns. You must do the entire activity during your turn. Many spells cost 2 actions, though a few cost 1 or 3. You gain these 3 actions and your reaction every time your turn starts. Something important to know is that attacking is an action, so you can theoretically attack 3 times. However, you get penalized in accuracy every time you make an attack. Your second attack will be at -5, your third attack will be at -10. So you'll want to try different things on your turn, and that's what we're going to go over in this video. Just to comment on why I like the 3-action economy and its pros. For those interested, when I was still making videos to improve the next edition of D&D, I did a video asking whether D&D should adopt Pathfinder's 3-action economy. I did a deep dive into the history of action economies in Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder, looked at how the 3-action economy addressed issues with 3rd edition D&D's action economy, and built on the improvements in 4th edition. And I also gave my own suggestion of what D&D should do in its next edition, and it was not to use Pathfinder's 3-action economy. You may be interested in that video, so that'll be linked in the video description. But I like the 3-action economy, first and foremost because it clearly is simpler. You don't have to deal with different action types. It's great for teaching new players. Movement, interacting with objects, actions, bonus actions don't all have their own unique rules to them, and it means it's more intuitive in play. Second, you get to do more, obviously, especially at low levels in Pathfinder. You get to attack more than once, but also compared to 5e where you're limited to moving and doing 1 action, you can do more theoretically with a turn in Pathfinder 2e. You can do 3 things. Third is the greater variety in what you're doing from turn to turn. Because of the multiple attack penalty, you're incentivized to do other things besides attack, and many of the actions in 5e like hiding or searching, they would use your 1 action in that turn, but here it's only 1 of your 3 actions. And Pathfinder also sets definite rewards for trying things like demoralizing enemies, recalling knowledge, setting up for your allies. It rewards teamwork. And this also leads to more interesting decisions. You don't have 4 different categories of things you can do on your turn that are walled off from each other and usually not exchangeable. Everything is exchangeable for another. You're going to feel you want to do more things than you have actions for. You're going to have to make decisions favoring offense over defense, or vice versa. Some spells let you spend a variable number of actions on them, like the heal spell. The 3-action version is powerful, but that means you cannot move or do a single other thing during your turn. So given that, let's look at what you can do in the 3-action economy. Let's start with the basics. First, you can stride. You can move up to your speed. This also means that you can move up to 3 times during your turn, or 2 times with another action. So again, very intuitive. Second, obviously, is you can make a strike with a weapon. This can include an unarmed attack. Of course, if you make multiple attacks, it will be less and less accurate during your turn. Third is to interact. In 5e, you get to do 1 free interaction with an object on your person or in the environment. And if you try to do a second interaction, that uses your action. Here, it just costs 1 of your 3 actions. But it does cost an action. There are other actions that let you move, such as tumbling through an enemy. This lets you walk through a space occupied by an enemy, and it uses your acrobatics skill. It's one of the many defined ways skills can be used in combat in Pathfinder 2e. There is more rule support and more defined ways you can use your skills in combat and outside of combat. Another thing to do to move is to stand. Unlike 5e, where it uses half of your speed, is its own action. So knocking you prone is going to have a definite effect on what you can do on your turn if you want to stand up. Also, you can simply step 5 feet. This is important because it does not provoke reactions from the enemy. Not all monsters have attack of opportunity in Pathfinder 2e, unlike its predecessor, 1e and D&D 5th edition. But some enemies do, and are able to do something to you if you leave a square that they threaten. But step is a way to avoid that consequence. This also, by the way, is how you can disengage from an enemy. If you are adjacent to an enemy, you can step back 5 feet away from them so that you're beyond their reach and use your second action to stride away. Unlike 5th edition's disengage action, you still have one action remaining at the end of it. Another is to crawl. While you're prone, you can travel 5 feet on the ground while prone. Again, it's only 5 feet instead of half your speed like 5e. Also, if you are standing, want to drop prone, that costs an action. I don't see it happen much in practice. Most people want to stand in this game. There are other ways to move beyond walking, of course. You can climb up an incline or swim in water. And there are defined rules on what happens when you succeed on an athletics check to climb or to swim. Next, you can jump. With a single action, you can do the leap action, which lets you travel 10 feet horizontally, or you can move up 3 feet and 5 feet horizontally. If you want to exceed these numbers, well, first, if you have a higher speed, you can travel farther horizontally, but also you can do an athletics check to do a long jump or a high jump. If you fail on those checks, you just leap normally. If you critically fail, you're gonna, well, there's rules for them when you look them up, but you end up prone. As I said, Pathfinder defines a lot of ways you can use your skills. There are ways to use athletics in combat. Just like in 5e, you can grapple an enemy. This is a single action, and it also has the attack trait, so it contributes and is penalized by your multiple attack penalty. When you grab somebody, it's pretty straightforward. You just make a single roll and compare it to one of their defensive scores, then they get the grabbed condition. While they are grabbed, they are off guard. They have a -2 circumstance penalty to their armor class, and that's to all of your allies. And they are immobilized. They cannot do any actions with the move trait. They will likely want to try to escape, which also has the attack trait and uses or wastes one of their actions. So grappling is quite powerful in this game. Another athletic skill is the shove action. This lets you push a creature 5 feet or 10 feet if you critically succeed, and you can choose whether to travel with them when you succeed. Notice that a lot of these actions have a critical failure effect, meaning that if you fail your roll by 10 or more, something bad will happen to you. And if you succeed by 10 or more, you get the critical success effect. Pathfinder's 4 degrees of success system permeates the system. Many spells, many skill actions use the 4 degrees of success. You can also trip a foe and give them the prone condition. These athletics maneuvers are limited to creatures that are one size category larger than you or smaller. There are ways to unlock more things you can do with your skills with skill feats, which we'll get to a few examples in a second. Just like grapple and shove, this also has the attack trait. Last is disarm. And we don't talk about disarm in the Pathfinder 2e community. It is not very strong. It doesn't actually disarm a foe unless you critically succeed. But also its success effect is very weak. And there is turmoil that I have been trying to stir up myself to try to make this a little better in the regular success effect. Anyway, I'll leave that on the screen for you to look at, but it's not used by many tables. Next, we move on to another skill that is often useful in combat, the medicine skill. When someone is unconscious and dying on the brink of death, you get to spend 2 actions to administer first aid so that they become stable. You can also use the same activity to stop their bleeding if they are taking persistent bleed damage. Next, you can treat poison. Poison can be nasty in this game. It is a persistent effect and it has stages. It can get worse if you fail your subsequent saving throws. Treat poison will give a significant bonus to the person if you succeed. And I would be remiss not to mention that there is a very popular skill feat that you can take that lets you restore hit points to an ally or yourself using medicine called battle medicine. These are all things you can do if you are trained in medicine. And if you have a decent wisdom score, you can be a crucial healer for the party. Next, if you don't want to act during your initiative count, we have the delay action. It's actually a free action. When your turn begins, you say you want to delay. You can then re-enter the initiative at any future point after another creature is done with their turn. You then act out your turn, and that is your new place in the initiative order. While you're waiting to jump back in, you cannot use reactions, however. Also, anything that has a duration that is affecting you that is beneficial does not take effect until you actually do your turn. And everything that is bad, including persistent damage, those happen immediately when you delay. The other thing you can do is act out your turn now, but ready an action that has a defined trigger. It costs you 2 actions to ready a single action, but you get to define what that trigger is, and it can interrupt another creature's turn, such as I strike that goblin if it runs within my reach. When you carry out that readied action, it uses your reaction. Next, I'll cover the third action problem. This refers to the fact that the multiple attack penalty disincentivizes you from attacking 3 times because that third attack will be very inaccurate. Also, you might have to move up to an enemy and make a strike, and making a second strike at -5 might not be the best idea. Maybe it is, depends on your character and the enemy. But new characters often are at a loss on what other things they can do. So here's a survey of things that new players should try out. The first thing to do is to recall knowledge. There are several skills, including Arcana, Occultism, Religion, Nature, and Society, that cover the vast majority, if not all, of the creatures that you'll encounter in the game. Pathfinder designs pretty much every creature to have some kind of unique ability, and also assigns them a lot of weaknesses, resistances, and immunities, and weak and strong saving throws. To avoid being spoilery, I'm going to put up on the screen a creature that most people who have played some good amount of D&D are familiar with, the Troll, just as indicative of what you'll see on many creatures. Creatures in Pathfinder, just like in 3rd edition, have 3 different saving throws. Fortitude is their physical toughness, Reflex is obviously they're avoiding things, and Will is their mental defense. Casting a spell or using an effect that targets their will defense essentially gives you a +3 if you compare to attacking their armor class, and a +10 when compared to attacking their fortitude save. Learning that it has attack of opportunity together with its 10-foot reach will have a big effect on how your party will position themselves around the creature. It also has regeneration, which means it cannot be killed unless you apply acid or fire damage to it. And it has weakness fire 10. And what that means is that every single instance of fire damage it takes, even a single point of damage, adds the number 10 to it. So if you can throw that alchemist fire on it and do persistent fire damage, you can do 30, 50, 60 points of damage to it, because persistent damage is really sticky in this game as well. You have to roll a 15 or higher on a d20 roll to get rid of it after you take the damage at the end of your turn. Some other third actions you can take. Oh, I have to point out that the third action name is a bit of a misnomer because sometimes you want to do these things as your first action on your turn. Maybe you want to recall knowledge before you make an attack, for example. So defensive actions. One is to raise your shield. Any character can wield a shield in this game, and they don't give you a passive bonus to AC. So your wizard can have a hand open for a shield, and it gives it, when they raise the shield, a +2 circumstance bonus to armor class, which is huge in this game because it also not only prevents hits, but also prevents critical hits due to the +10, -10, 4 degrees of success system. Also, spellcasters do not need a free hand to cast the vast majority of their spells. In the current edition of the game, you only need a free hand if it uses a material or focus component. Another defensive move is to just walk away. Again, movement costs an action. You can cause that ogre that you don't want to hit you to have to waste one of its actions to walk up to you. This is especially useful when facing higher level foes, who often have a good chance of hitting you 3 times even with their last attack. Another option is, if you are standing behind some cover, is to take cover, like around the corner of a building or standing behind a boulder will give you +2 circumstance bonus to armor class just by being there. Take cover increases the bonus to greater cover, a +4 circumstance bonus, which is very, very, very good. So a nice way to keep yourself safe while sniping from range. It also gives you a bonus to reflex saves. Lastly, you can spend an action to hide. By hiding, you become hidden to enemies, and they basically have a 50-50 chance of targeting you. Then, if you're hidden, you can become even harder for the enemy to attack you by becoming undetected. They don't know where you are. You do this by sneaking to another location of cover or concealment. These are both stealth actions, by the way. Sometimes you want to set up a crucial attack. So here's some third actions you can do, though really they should be things you do first. You can stride to get a better position against an enemy. Flanking is a default rule in Pathfinder 2e. If you can draw a line from the center of your character to the center of an ally of yours, and that line crosses opposite sides of the enemy or opposite corners, you are flanking the foe. And that makes them off guard and gives them a -2 circumstance penalty to their armor class. In Pathfinder, whenever you hear -2, +1, you kind of want to double that number in your head to think of its real impact. Because of the 4 degrees of success system, the effect of every bonus and penalty is effectively doubled. You also can hide behind cover, because if they can't see you, they become off guard to you. If you are attacking from range, this is a way to increase the accuracy of your attack. You also can create a diversion. You can do this from a distance and apply it against any number of enemies. It's a deception check, and you basically say something or do something physical to distract them, and if you succeed, you become hidden to all of them and can make an attack or sneak away. You stop being hidden at the end of your turn, so that's why I didn't put it under defensive moves. You also can do a feint. If you have melee reach to a creature, you can do something to distract them and make them off guard to your next attack. And if you critically succeed, they are off guard to you until the end of your next turn. Very good if you're a rogue to do that, or to flank somebody, because you can get sneak attack on every single one of your attacks. Then there's what I call general setup actions that help you and your allies. Demoralize is an intimidation check that is very powerful. Within 30 feet, you can say something that intimidates a foe and gives them the frightened condition. If you succeed, they become frightened 1, and that gives them a status penalty to every single check and DC that they have. So all of their attacks are penalized. Their armor class is a DC as well. That gets penalized too. If you critically succeed, this frightened value becomes 2. And at the end of that enemy's turn, it goes down by 1. This is something you want to do right after that creature acts so that the debuff lasts as long as possible. You do want to share a language, however, or else you get a -4 circumstance penalty to the check. It's because you're saying something that's going to freak them out. There is a skill feat, though, to avoid that penalty. Next, you can also prepare to aid an ally. Basically, you spend an action to prepare to assist one of your teammates with something, an attack, a skill check. You spend that one action, and then you spend your reaction when your ally attempts the check. Now, as written, it's a little hard to succeed on doing this at low levels, and I actually put out a video recently proposing a revision to it. Hopefully the remaster will address it, we'll see. But this becomes quite powerful as you level up, and very, very powerful in the higher levels. Next, we go into a few skill feats that give you more third actions. First is Battle Medicine. We went over that a second ago. This is crucial and lets you restore hit points to somebody in combat. Very useful to have if you don't have healing potions and elixirs of life to bring up somebody from 0 especially. This does as much healing as spending 10 minutes outside of combat to treat wounds. You are limited to doing it once per target per day though. And this becomes more powerful as you improve your medicine skill and gain other feats. Another is Intimidating Glare, to avoid that -4 penalty when you don't share a language with somebody you're trying to demoralize that I talked about a second ago. And this next one came out in the second book for Pathfinder, the Advanced Player's Guide, called Bon Mot, where you insult an enemy and give them a penalty to their perception and will saves, a fat penalty as well. This is a great way to set up some kind of mental attack, like Demoralize or a lot of spells that affect their mind. And it's really funny too, when they are under this penalty, they have to try to insult you back in order to remove the penalty. And if you critically fail, your quip is atrocious and you suffer the penalty you would have imposed on them. Next, I want to address the third action problem with casters, because a lot of casters, most of their spells require 2 actions. And a lot of players, especially who come from 5e, have the habit of casting a spell and moving up to their speed and don't think of other things to do. And there's kind of a clamor of more 1-action spells. But I did put out a video as part of this law school series on how to caster good, which I will link to in the video description. But I'll just go over some third actions for casters here. First is nothing stopping you from fighting with weapons. All spellcasters are proficient with crossbows. And this is even better if you have access to the martial bows, the short bows and the long bows, which have no reload time. Even better is that a lot of your spells that attack do not have the attack trait. They call for saving throws. Spells like Electric Arc or Daze, you can cast one of those spells and make a shot with your bow, and both actions use your full accuracy. Other third actions for casters are, well, I'm just going to repeat the lists that I showed earlier. These are defensive actions: raising your shield, walking away, taking cover, hiding, sneaking. You can set up an attack with hiding, creating a diversion, feinting, and you can do general setup with Demoralize or Prepare to Aid. All of these actions I went over earlier apply to casters too. So that's my quick overview of everything, or nearly everything you can do using the basic rules in the core rulebook in the 3-action economy. In a companion video, I'm going to address what I think is a common ask among players who don't like the fact that some things cost you an action in Pathfinder that are free in D&D 5e. And there's actually a video with some clips where this issue came up, where the fact that it took an action to pull out a weapon, an action to stand up, was a point of frustration for the players. And also, moving costs an action, and you cannot break up your movement either. Well, my companion video will address this issue, called The Benevolent Tyranny of Pathfinder's 3-Action Economy. So that should be a fun one. If you're interested in that video, definitely like and subscribe and ring the bell, get the notification. If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy my videos that have combat demonstrations, where I demonstrate a lot of these actions in practice through actual play. I have my side-by-side comparison with the same battle played out in D&D 5e and Pathfinder 2e, which is a good way to learn the nuances of both systems' combat rules and action economies. And I also have my tactics series, where I go over beginning and intermediate tactics for dealing with the hard fights that you will encounter in Pathfinder 2e. So as you can tell, I'm wrapping up, and you should join my Discord community if you haven't already. We are almost at 4,000 people. It's a great community. I spend time there every day and interact frequently. We discuss Pathfinder 2e, other tabletop role-playing games, and gaming in general. We also have a drop-in organized play system called Endless Tale Tavern, where you can take your same character from adventure to adventure and level up and get loot. Also, support my Patreon, which is how I'm able to continue this channel. And you get early access to most of my videos and exclusive access to many videos, including discussions on how to caster good and my series showing Pathfinder 2e to D&D YouTubers and running adventures for them. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I've been Ronald, the Rules Lawyer, and I'll see you next time.